When I saw the title of your book on Podmatch, I was like, yes, I absolutely want to talk about this, because I think it applies to on literally every part of our lives, that you have to do something instead of nothing. So the title again, I'm going to say, is What We Don't Do: Inaction in the Face of Suffering and the Drive to Do More. Is there anything that inspired you to write this book, and how you wanted to highlight the harm of inaction, of us just sitting on the sidelines hoping things get better?
Yeah. So in terms of, so maybe before speaking to why this topic was of interest and why I wrote a book about it, just to kind of recap the summary of the argument of the book.
Sure.
Essentially what the book argues is that when we think about good and bad, right or wrong, am I living a good life? Is this person good or bad? We generally think about actions, right? It's pretty simple. It's pretty, I would say, almost sort of ethical kindergarten level of, okay, good people do good things, bad people do bad things. That's it. As long as I'm not doing really bad things in my life, and I'm doing a few good things, I'm a good person. My life is being well lived.
Right.
But when we think about it a little more deeply today, and this wasn't the case thousands of years ago, but today, there's far more harm that happens in the world around us. People suffering, environmental impacts, animal suffering, etc. There's far more harm that happens because of our own inaction than any negative thing we will ever do in our lives. And the level of harms that happen because of our inaction today are pretty staggeringly high. And so my reason for writing the book, this is something that I've certainly thought and felt for many years, that this notion that choosing not to act is itself a choice. Like, so from a consequences perspective, like my impact on the world, your impact on the world, any listener's impact on the world, that comes in part from the things they choose to do, but also the things they choose not to do, what they spend their money on or don't spend their money on, what they spend their time on or don't spend their time on. And these choices of action, inaction, have such huge consequences. And almost no one ever thinks about it. Almost no one ever talks about it. It's just not part of the public discourse. And there were literally few good academic articles, there's blogs, there's websites, et cetera, but literally no book on this topic that had ever been written. So wanted to write it, wanted to kind of think through the topic more fully, put it on paper and share it with those that might want to live a more thoughtful, informed life, want to have a good impact on the world, but maybe may not have thought about this element of that idea of living a good life.
Right. And how did you, because, any book, I'm researching for my own right now as well, nonfiction. And so this is more of an inside baseball question. When you thought about the concept on the macro level, how did you sit down and outline a book for how you wanted to break it up into chapters for, how you wanted to prove your thesis?
Yeah, so I've written a few books, and a few of them are more research based, and those were easier to structure into sort of categories and subcategories, and then based on the research, plug that research into, just categorize it where it fits in a subsection,
Right.
and then yeah.
Whereas
But
this topic seems gigantic.
yeah, indeed,
Yeah.
and in lots of ways that you could think of, because it's more of a kind of philosophy, ethics sort of book. It's not research based. It's just talking through a way of thinking and thoughts about how to enact some of the principles in your day-to-day life. So there's so many ways to approach it. So I would say, I started with, okay, here are some of the key points I want to cover that might make for full chapters or full parts of chapters. And that was like an initial, very bare bones outline. But then as I went through it, things changed, orders shifted, additional things cropped up. So it was pretty fluid until I got near the end of the process, the writing process.
Oh God, that makes me feel so good. Just today, I was in a couple chapters that have been separated out into other chapters, and I was texting I have a book coach right now, and I'm like, this is a shit show. When does it become not a shit show? And you just answered my question, so I appreciate that. Just as a morale booster. But yeah, so I'd like you to go into what are some of the things that cropped up first, for example, and actually to go back for a second, what was something that you thought when you started writing the book that may have changed by the time you got to the end of it? As you said, there was a bit of an evolution of the writing process.
So I think where it started, some of the first ideas were just some of the key bullet points. Like, for example, our inaction has just as much, if not even more, impact on others around us than our actions have for us today. That failing to act is, I think we might view it as I would view it personally in my own life as an ethical failure, right? Like if I have the ability to save somebody's life or reduce the suffering of many individuals, and I choose not to do it, and I could do it without any real harm or downside to myself, like I would personally, at least in my own life, view that as an ethical failing. Few points about why this is the case historically, like why our minds are wired the way they are, which is to generally ignore the impact of inactions. There were a few things like that. There were kind of very basic points of the book that were there from the start. To answer your second question, though, I would say the biggest evolution was, and I'm curious if you've been finding this in writing your own book, is that this is a topic for me I've thought about for decades, really, and it's guided how I live my own life. It really is part of the core of my own personal ethical view system and so forth. Sitting down to write a book about it led me to think about aspects of it in much more depth than I'd ever thought about before. So I'd say the biggest change wasn't so much like a shift in viewpoint or anything. It more was just realizing lots of things that I had not realized before, because I never sat down and spent the time thinking and writing, which of course stimulates and follows from thinking about the topic at such length and getting into details as I did from the course of writing the book. So it was really interesting in that I thought through this general idea a lot more, read more about things that intersect with it, and from that just learned a lot more and further refined my viewpoints, I guess, on the topic in a way that I certainly didn't before, where it was more general in nature, I would say.
Right. Yeah, that speaks to my experience very much as well. I mean, when I first started writing, I had this idea of what I wanted to say and what it was, and through it, I met a lot of people that are experts in the field, that are working with men. It's a book about men and boys, and that are working with men in different groups. And so these conversations I've been having and meeting these amazing experts and people along the way, they really fundamentally kind of shifted where I started. And every idea I get, I'm like, oh, I think this, but let me go read these 3 books about it, and then we'll see where I am. We'll see if I agree with these books, if I have something new to say, or if I'm out of touch. Like all of these things was such a, yeah, it really was an evolution as I went. And so for you, what has become I suppose the cornerstone of the book? Like if there's one thing you want people to take away that's the most important, what's something that you want to hear that would, because for me, when I hear one core idea about a book, it's what makes me pick it up and want to eat the rest of it.
Yeah, yeah. So I'd say like how I might phrase it, like if I was giving the one sentence elevator pitch about the book, that would probably be a little bit different than like what my ideal like one single lesson taken away from the book is. In
Mm,
terms of the latter, like if someone could read it or read part of it or read about it and take away one lesson, what would I want that viewpoint or learning to be? I think it would be internalizing, like knowing as like believing and agreeing with, but also just like pretty seriously internalizing this idea that I have the ability to help huge numbers of others, people, animals, etc., to reduce
sure.
huge amounts of suffering if I spend more of my time and money and energy doing so.
Right.
I think that would be the core of it.
I love that. I mean, I read somewhere that saying that like if you read 1,000 books in your life, you're not going to remember every detail from every single book. But if you just come up with one new concept for every book you read, it will fundamentally change who you are as a person. And I've never forgot that. I think it's super powerful.